Tabooed Talk.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tabooed Talks. I am your host, Vinci, and with us we have the wonderful Dr. Terrance Martin. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Now we've been trying to connect for a while. I'm Dr. Terrance Martin, but please call me Terrance. Born and raised here in St. Kitts, educated here at the Great Newtown Primary, went through the high school system and moved, and my background is in economics and household finance. So I'm happy to be here talking about such an extremely important topic.
Okay, so today we are going to be diving in and talking about Social Security on a whole, and we're going to discuss a few aspects of Social Security. Dr. Terrance, as he said, he's going to give us the fine, specifics, digits, and all of that.
Right.
And I am just going to keep it general with you guys. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So born and raised here, originally in Newtown area, grew up, went to Ponds Pasture School, or Newtown School as I was called, Basket Junior High, Senior High, and eventually left in 2005 to go to Midwestern State to do a bachelor's in economics, right? I was lucky enough to get a scholarship, did an MBA. After the financial recession, decided, I'm at a pivotal point in my life. Do I want to go the corporate finance route, or do I want to work with people, right? So I opted for more of a household finance, household economic approach, did a Ph.D. in financial planning from Texas Tech University, graduated after 3 years and been working in academia since. So I've devoted my life to financial education, wealth management and those types of areas, and always looking for an opportunity to give back, especially in my home country, especially in my region.
Awesome. Ladies, I think he's single, so if you're looking, hey, your finances will be in good hands. So let's get into it. Can you tell us, by your definition, your opinion, what is the purpose of Social Security?
Social Security in layman's terms, the goal here is to promote economic activity in the country. Because think about it, who does Social Security serve? You're serving retirees, right? So imagine if we have 5,000 people not working with no source of income, what will that effect have on the economy? And the economy is primarily driven by things like consumption. So if you have 5,000 people unable to spend money because they don't have any, the draw or the drag on the economy will be significant. So Social Security was a way to hedge that loss, right? Along with pensions and stuff if you're fortunate enough to have one. But Social Security basically replaces income that would be lost after you no longer make labor income, right? So it continues economic activity among a group that is, one, substantially large in size, and two, living longer because of science, right? So we're no longer just dying at 65, 70. No, we have people living till 80 or 85, right? There's no worse feeling than to wake up one day and realize there's no money left in your bank account, right? So Social Security helps to fill that void and fill that gap. So in general, it promotes economic activity in the nation.
It's amazing that you say, it's really important because, one day you don't want to wake up and not find anything in your bank account. However, do you think though, because based on my knowledge of, certain things when it comes to having pension and that sort of thing, you're not really getting your full salary either way, right? Mm-hmm. Some people are still forced to work. So is there, asking you what the purpose is there really a purpose? If you're going to still have to force yourself to, work after you reach this age because you can't really afford to.
So then we need to explore why people continue to work, let's say after retirement. And retirement, it should be mentioned here that we all define retirement differently, right? Some people might define retirement as when they stop work. Some people might define retirement as, I'm going to stop work for this person, but I'm going to work for myself. I know a young woman got retired at 40, but she's still working. But she's working as an entrepreneur, right? Or some people just don't have access, and those who retired and now realize they're forced to work, they realize, well, hey, my savings can't sustain me, right? And on top of that, they may not have access to pensions because they may not be a government employee or one of the 6 companies in this country that actually offer some sort of pension plan or retirement benefit. So what else can you do? You have to then probably go back part-time or monetize your hustle, right? So I think it really depends on the definition of retirement, and everybody's different, or it also depends on the ability. We all want to retire. Nobody wants to work forever. But can you? And then also too, sustainability. You know, I'm a firm believer some people work because if they stop, they're dead.
Yeah, there are some people like that. Yeah, they feel like they have to keep moving. Yeah, they have to keep moving.
Yeah. So
that's so true.
I think that's part of it.
But let's talk about mandatory. I want to ask this question because do you think it should be mandatory that workplaces must have pension plans for their workers? I think it's something that should be mandatory, or it should stay as an option, because I find that some places don't.
I do think it should be mandatory for you to have some sort of retirement benefit. The problem is I don't think we have economic structure or capital market structure that could support that at all in the region. Maybe except for Trinidad, Barbados, maybe Jamaica. And the reason is, like, okay, you have a retirement account, but if it's going to just sit in cash, if it's going to sit in a certificate of deposit, what's the point? It's just cash. When you add inflation on top of that, they're losing money anyway, so you're not really helping anybody. So before it can be mandatory, we need to do something that spur capital market activity. For example, look at the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange. Why is it that I could watch it today and watch it a year from now and nothing changes, right? There's no volume, there's no trading. So until we have the ability to grow wealth, or grow and help to facilitate the accumulation of retirement wealth, what's the point? I'm happy that some people have pensions, but they don't know what they invested in. They don't know they probably know the dollar value of the balance, but they don't know their vesting schedules. There's a lot of things that aren't fully transparent in my mind that needs to be. But do I think it needs to be? Yes. Now, I live in the US, and many people don't know this, but the United States is one of the biggest countries in the world, but retirement is not mandatory. But when it is not mandatory, what happens? The government intervenes with a retirement scheme that helps to spur and encourage savings through tax incentives. Well, you can't have tax incentives here because you don't have tax. You don't have income tax. So what can the government do to encourage that, right? So
what are you suggesting about the income tax?
I'm not suggesting anything.
I
think when it was abolished, I want to say it was in the 80s, early 80s, I think it was a great thing because it pushed money back into an economy that needed that money. Right? So, you know, Antigua tried to put it back on. St. Lucia has income tax. Barbados has income tax, right? I don't think that's something that's necessary here. If you're going to have one more tax, you have to offset it with others. Does that mean that will go away? Until we have them conversations, I don't think anybody could discuss income tax. But the point is that a lot of the benefits that are used to encourage retirement savings are then leveraging the tax benefits of the country. So it has to be based on how can I save you income by encouraging you to save? Because we respond to rational incentives, right?
Yeah, we do. People. We actually do. Yeah. We really do.
Well, they say we're rational. We're really irrational, but yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, I don't want this to be an interview.
No. So you want a conversation?
Because I feel like I'm asking questions here, but I don't want this to be an interview.
But so, like, okay, what can we have here to offset? So if we double back to Social Security, you're at full retirement age at 62, right? Let's say you work for a government, your retirement age is 55 unless you're not people. So because your retirement age is 55, that's a 7-year shortfall. And let's say at 55, assuming you're appointed, then you get a pension. And then that pension is roughly around 50% of your income. So automatically you're living on 50% of your income. And then you wait till Social Security to kick in and probably give you the rest, right? And then you get some lump sum at some point.
At some point, yeah.
So or maybe they don't do lump sum. I don't know.
No, they do lump sum because I think,
yeah,
because I think there's a company that I know, they were explaining some Social Security pension plans the other day. And they were talking about the lump sum. But from my understanding, there's a trick to it though. There's a trick because if you say that you are, I think if you're saying that you're going into pension, that they pay you monthly.
It's an annuity.
Yeah, but then they say, hey, you're getting this amount, but then when you add up the monthly, because you don't know, you don't get.
A gamble.
But then if you tell them that you are resigning, I think, or something of that sort, then the option to get your lump sum kicks in. But if you use the term, I think it was a matter of terminology. So if you're leaving the work and you use the term of retirement, they give you this monthly thing, which is a little bit of money. But then if you use another term, you get the option to have the lump sum of the retirement fund.
Good. I mean, people need.
But the thing is, people don't know that.
Yeah, people need. It's a settlement option, right? So people need the ability to know, okay, am I going to get a lump sum? And then you determine what to do with some of that lump sum, right? And then what a lot of people do, they just pay debt, right?
That.
So they pay debt to make their ease into retirement a lot easier. Or you get the annuity for life, right? Well, life, you walk out.
However long,
die,
yeah.
Right? Then it goes to a spouse, right? In the form of a benefit.
Or I don't think it's just a spouse. I think they give you an actual option. It doesn't have to necessarily be. You can determine who the beneficiary.
Yeah, but typically, if you like, for example, if you're married, you need the permission of the spouse to change the beneficiary to somebody else other than the spouse.
Really?
That's how it should be.
If you have the, so if
me and you married,
even if I don't have you listed,
yeah, if me and you married, right, just by nature of certain assets, they could transfer to you, right? Now, if I don't want you to have them, I need your permission to basically assign them to my child. That's how it should be. I don't know if that's how it is here in practice, but that's how it should be.
But then what if that person is just being malicious? Then what happens in that case?
So then the ability to assign to somebody else is where that side to avoid the maliciousness, right? Because you don't want to exclude things, but yeah. But I think what the point I was trying to get there was that you have this shortfall for about 7 years that people just trying to make up for. Like, how are you gonna fill that extra 50% of income for 7 years before Social Security kicks in? That's a cause for concern, right? And again, in the absence of a capital market, there's very little opportunity for growth. So what I tell you to do is save. But
save what?
If you just save in a traditional savings account, your money loses around 3 to 7% in value a year. So if you had $100, next year worth 93 cents. $93. You've lost $7 in purchasing.
When you say
power.
Traditional savings, you're talking about normal bank savings?
Yeah, normal bank savings.
So you're telling me saving is losing rather than actually saving?
Yeah, through the art of inflation, right? So, like, walking through the supermarket today, I was hearing people talk, man, these prices gone up. Well, that's inflation, right? Look at gas prices. That's inflation, right? Now, if you ask central bank, they will tell you inflation is around 2 to 3%, meaning your dollar today is worth 2 to 3% less next year, or 2 to 3% than the previous year. Right? So if you were to actually look at, because we're pegged to the US dollar, right?
Yes.
The inflation in the United States is at all-time high for about 20 years, 7%.
It has been, yeah.
So then how is it 2 to 3% here? And where do we buy most of our food from?
From the US.
And so we have this massive food import bill that's going to just be passed on to the consumer. Right, so inflation is really, in my opinion, somewhere between 7 to 10% in terms of prices year over year. So every year, every $100 loses somewhere between $7 to $10. And that ain't got nothing to do with the fact that you got price gouging by some people here. So all that affects the ability to even sustain yourself in retirement, which makes schemes like Social Security and the ability to even save and invest even that much more important. Because you have to offset that loss of income, right? The only way you could offset it is to grow it, right? That's the only way. So, and there's not much opportunity for growth here.
Okay, so I think there was a report some time back, talking about the inflation. That's the word? Or the depletion, sorry.
Depletion.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say. The depletion of Social Security over the next 20 years, based on what, the numbers. So what you really think is going to become of Social Security? What stage we're in now?
Well, social security schemes all around the world are struggling from this ability, this concept of them running out of money, right? There's a longevity issue. St. Nevis is no different, and we are scheduled to be depleted by 2040, right? Meaning, if you retire after 2040 or close to 2040, chances are you, without nothing being done, all things ceteris paribus, nothing changes, you won't get anything. So all this 11% or whatever it is that you contribute on a monthly basis, then that will just be going for naught, right? Now they've proposed in this actuarial report by, I think it was LifeWorks, they've proposed some strategies, but guess how many more years those strategies extended? It's not going to be depleted in 2040, but guess how many more years these strategies they recommend?
More than the 20 years?
No, 3 more years. So it won't be depleted if we implement these strategies like increasing the retirement, the age from which you could get Social Security from 62 to somewhere between 65 and 67, trying to widen the tax base, increase the contribution, because St. Nevis is actually one of the lowest in the region at 11%, then it will only move the needle around 3%, 3 years. So for me, that's concerning. I'm actually surprised y'all ain't upset. Like, I don't understand why the fuck nobody actually talking about this motherfucking... I don't understand why nobody talking about this, because this is very concerning. You're talking about a public that has nothing else, nothing else besides Social Security. How do you save for retirement? Personal savings, pension, Social Security. Personal savings really include investments. Cash, check.
Not everybody can afford that,
Nobody, but where are you going to invest? The Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange that don't grow?
Exactly.
So, you ain't got no money saved, and what you do save, that you work so hard for, inflation eat it away. So even though your balance at $100,000, that $100,000 made more sense 30 years ago than it does today. So you're dependent on Social Security, predominantly. Right? And then what we do, we confound these things. Why do you think everybody got rental income? All these established people have now gone into real estate. It's to supplement this loss of income in many cases, especially the older ones. Right? So we need Social Security to work here. In the US, you could then make an argument, because somebody might say, well, you're in America, why you don't just go give your advice to America? Well, hey, it's the US government, they will never go bankrupt. They can say whatever you want. We don't have that ability to just print cash here, one, because we are part of a currency union, right? And we, after the land for debt swap, nobody buying with bonds anyway. So the reality is, we're not rated A++ on, Standards and Poor's and Moody's. We don't have that buying power in the investment community like that.
My thing about that, though, is this. I mean, if you're going to raise the age gap, the contribution amount, what happened to salaries? Because what's going to support that? Because if you're going to you're now taking what? I think it's 11%? 11%? Yeah. You're taking 11%. Well, how much more of my salary you're going with if at this point I can't even really...
Well, let's say they push to 14%. Theoretically, every other $100 you lose $3, right? So you get an additional 3%. You lose an additional $3 per $100 of income. So for some people, it might be as low as $9 a week to maybe a couple $100 a week, depending on your level of income, right? I think salaries, that's a completely different conversation. I'll give you an example, though. I was working for a company. I haven't worked many places, but I worked for a company, and I was making $10.22 in 2004. About a year ago, I had drinks with a guy doing the same job I did 16 years prior, making $10.34. This is a 12 cents difference over 16
After
years.
16 years.
So if we were to actually project what happened in terms of cost of living and prices since then. Remember back then you used to get an apartment, a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom house for $600?
Exactly.
What'd that be, like $3,000 now?
But,
So you could
but
just
the other day I
look at the
saw
housing
a
costs.
1-bedroom apartment for $12.50.
It's crazy.
Unfurnished.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But this is the reality, is that wages have not met up with the cost of living.
At
right?
all.
And can I just say that? No, I'm not going to say that. But it's concerning. We have a lot of structural problems that are affecting our economic activity. If I could be professorial for a little bit.
That's fine.
GDP is equal to consumption, investments, government, taxes minus spending, plus net exports, right? We don't expect nothing but tourism, right? We got a little bit of electronics here and there, but really and truly, we import, our food import bill just crowds.
It's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
So then, and you know, kudos to the government. We've grown more in agriculture, but it's nothing that's significant. So who spends most in our economy? Because we ain't got a lot of investments, right? If you look, I mean, look around. We don't have a lot of foreign direct investment as we used to. Like the port wasn't built by a foreign company. The port was built by Social
us,
Security,
yeah.
them things, right? So who's spending? Government.
They are.
Government spending. So it's not consumption that's driving GDP. So if there's anything that affects government revenues, like Shenzhen saying no more visa access to Europe, right? Then what happens if CBI is affected?
Let me just side-eye this one.
So I'm just saying that we have to really look structurally at what's going on. And one, how we could increase wage growth, right? How we could incentivize companies to pay workers more. Well, how? Taxes, tax breaks. Why is it a foreigner could come in here and get a tax-free holiday and a local can't? When they might say, yes, a local can, but you got to go apply. But when somebody on a certain level of income, time is very important. For you to go tell me to go to this office, that office, that office, that office, that office, I think it becomes problematic and turns people off. I'm not quite sure that's the approach we do.
No, it really does, because if I have to be, if I need to find out some information about one thing or get something and I have to go there, I go here and you say, hey, I need to go up there, and eventually that's what happens. It gets annoying.
So the funny thing about even this whole conversation is that I didn't see that in the report. Find ways to increase wages. That's the easiest way to increase Social Security reserves.
But exactly.
Right? To increase wages or to increase contributors. So right now we have about 7,000 pensioners. According to this report, 7,100 pensioners. We have about, it's a weird terminology, around 27,000 people that has contributed at least once. So let's assume of that 27,000 people that has contributed at least once, 25,000 contribute regularly. Right? So that's means 7 to 25, that's like 1 to 3.5. So for every pensioner, we have 3.5 people that is supporting technically that pensioner based on their contributions. But those contributions are like wide, meaning you have people that work in the industrial side, people that work in banks. So on average, right, it's not necessarily a high enough number. And maybe this pensioner was the person that working in a bank, right? And not somebody that working up the industrial side. So these three that contributing to this one might actually be contributing less than this one is actually pulling out of the system. That's part of the problem, right? So for us to actually fix Social Security, we have to fix wages.
Of course.
We have to fix cost of living and those things. Because guess what? If housing was cheaper, if food was cheaper, people would spend more money, that would drive demands and entrepreneurship. And then what you do, you hire more people, and in hiring more people, they now contribute to Social Security.
Yep.
And
if they had more money to spend as well, because,
disposable income,
yeah. I have I mean, we're talking about, helping Social Security to, progress. How do Social Security, I'm going to state a bit because there was a situation one time, so I need to ask about this situation. I'm not going to call, names in this instance, but how does Social Security ensure that employers pay Social Security for their employees? Because some employees, you get a slip and it's telling me, hey, my 11% coming out, but then when you're sick, no, when you go down there.
That's not the employee's problem. That could never be the employee's problem. That's a government employer problem. That's a government going after and enforcing their laws problem in that regard. You can't blame me as an employee who shows up to work all the time. I do what I have to do, and then it's my responsibility to make sure my employer pays my social security. No, if that's the case, give me my full 11% and let me walk my check down to the Bay Road.
So, but you said government. Okay, well, government, social security. Yeah, I understand.
Statutory.
But then, is there something in place? Do you, but by chance?
There should be. I mean, there must be some sort of penalties to drive that. If you don't do something, you get some sort of sanctions or fines or penalties, something. There's something there.
Because
the enforcement becomes the issue. But you can't, the practice of blaming the employee, that's not sustainable.
Because I'm aware of a situation, you know, and, you know, I know the workers would have gone, but then nothing. So then what? There was literally nothing up to
But then
this
that's not
day.
the worker's problem. If the worker
Nothing.
could prove
They
that
went,
they
they
worked
complained,
and they have proof that, hey, my salary was deducted, it's not the worker's responsibility, in my honest opinion.
But they suffer.
They suffer.
And then what?
But they suffer in the short term. This is a long-term problem. Unless that worker is about to retire, why are they concerned? Why are they concerned?
Because because then it would, okay, suppose it's a situation that that person, it's their only job they've ever had at that point.
I get you.
It looks, I mean, for them it looks like, but I've been working so long.
But
and
again,
then
if
it
they-
makes things a little less.
Yeah, but if they got proof that they've worked and they got proof that this money was deducted, because not everybody going to pay Social Security. A small man on the road with a little side job and helping some, you ain't going to pay Social Security for that. Businesses pay Social Security. And it would be great to make a distinction between a sole proprietor and a business because they're not the same things. So if a business is in operation and that business has their different tax responsibilities and stuff like that, then, you know, it's their responsibility to pay Social Security. If you're a registered business and you have to file your revenue information, that should be a trigger. And maybe that information should be shared with Social Security if it's not. So maybe they could do the enforcement on that level. But I agree. I empathize with the employees. It's really not their responsibility to make sure that the employer pays. And hopefully something is done to protect the employees in that regard. It's also similar to, like, if this was, let's say they were working for a company that told them they had a pension and the company closes down and that pension goes away. Right? I mean, there has to be something there to protect the employee, in that regard. I'm hoping there is.
I think,
through Department of Labor or something.
I
like
think
that.
with some of the insurance companies that the whole, you know, they set up these pension plans with, some are transferable, where, like, you know, if this specific job, you yourself can continue with that, you know, specific pension plan individually, or you can pass it on.
So the insurance companies have stepped in
Yeah.
to create pension schemes in the absence of government structured pension schemes.
It helps. I mean,
It really
because
doesn't.
okay, so let's
cost
explore that.
doesn't-
Let's explore that.
The cost doesn't.
No, say it. We're educated. We're educated.
If you run the figures, the cost of the actual accounts added with inflation, you actually have less money than saving. It's a bigger total. Yeah, hey, you're gonna get $100,000 at 65. You could pull it out, but you could actually save that money. Because if you look at the cost, the fees associated with having that, added with inflation, you'll probably save around the same amount. No,
I
main
never
specific
saw it.
names,
I
but
never saw it that
it's
way.
time value of money, right? So you're talking about future cash flows. So we are we are growing this in. So it's $1 today, but that dollar in 50 years could actually be $20. But it actually has $1 value today, a value of $1 in terms of purchasing power, even though it might be worth 20. So when somebody tells you you're gonna get $100,000 20 years from now, it doesn't mean you're actually getting $100,000 of purchasing power in today's dollars, right?
Because you don't know what it will be there.
You don't know what the value of the
That
dollar
is
is going to
true.
be then.
But then, isn't that safe to say everything help? Every little dollar
Everything
helps.
is gonna help.
Because,
Yeah.
I mean, let's go back to the fact that with Social Security, you're gonna get what, 50%, right?
Around there, I guess.
Around
Based on the
50%. So,
formulas,
but then you still have something here because your 50% mightn't be any. If your salary now is not working,
I'm a fundamental believer that insurance companies should provide insurance and stay the hell out of investments.
okay.
That's my fundamental belief. I fundamentally believe, let me say that again. Anybody could watch me make here. I
fine.
fundamentally believe
Okay with that.
insurance companies should provide insurance and stay out of investments. Okay? So the thing is, if these people, these citizens, these customers, were to use that additional cost above the cost of actually being insured, right? So we're looking at a different type of insurance plan. We're looking at, let's say you have to just get term insurance. Term insurance grows, the cost is exponential. So it actually gets more expensive as you age, right? But so they sell you on universal. It's fixed. You'll never pay another dollar above what you're paying now. But it's fixed for life, right? But and a portion of it goes to investments, and when you reach a certain age, you could take that money out, you could borrow against the money, you could do all these different things. And people say, yeah, well, now I have something. People are craving another source of income for retirement, right? Fair enough. I understand that need. But do you know St. Kitts and Nevis citizens could invest in America? You could invest in the United States. You could invest on the stock exchanges.
Okay.
Right? You know the average return on investment is in America over the last 80 years? Somewhere between 12 to 13%. If we want to be conservative, let's say 10. Okay. So that extra, however much, let's say $100. Let's say it's an extra $100 for the investment component, invested at an annual rate of 10%. We ain't even getting technical to daily rates. Then you're talking about next year, if you're to save that, you'll have an additional $120. Then you're going to put that additional $1,200 plus 10% of that balance now for the next year. It's going to grow significantly more than what you're going to have in that account.
It is.
But we have access to that market, right? And so I get that they're serving a need. I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, I think sometimes all that glitters is not gold if you actually look at the numbers. So right now, the world is changing. So like my illusion just now to that we could access investment markets. Like one of the things I said in my opening is that we don't have proper capital structure. So how do we get that capital structure? Yeah. What are your options? Jamaica in 2017, 18, or maybe 19, one of those three for 2 years in a row in there. Their stock exchange was the best in the world. It was the highest producing, highest return stock exchange in the entire world. How is it more people from St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, etc., we're not investing in Jamaica, but foreigners are? People in Europe, people in the US, people in the UK, in Asia. Barbados has a vibrant stock exchange where they have cross listings with, I want to say it's the UK or maybe even in Canada as well. Why aren't we invested there? Remember BICO?
Yes.
BICO trades in Barbados. Trinidad, oil-rich country, vibrant stock exchange, lot of liquidity. Why don't we have access there? Then we have ours, great for interest income, great for dividends, sucks on liquidity. Right? So I would not advise anybody to do that because you can't get your money out. So then we have, okay, what's the option? We could go to America. There's a company, and I'm not trying to endorse a company, but you have to find out a broker that would facilitate onboarding from St. Kitts Nevis. We had another one who I used to advise people to go to, but recently St. Kitts and Nevis was dropped as one of those countries that you could open an investment account from.
Oh boy.
And that was troubling because people who I advised to open accounts got letters saying you need to close these accounts. People doing the right thing. So now there's another company, I think it's called Interactive Brokers, that facilitates those things. You set up an account, you submit certain forms, and you're able to trade in the United States. And it's complicated. Investments ain't easy. Added to that, all around you're hearing about crypto. I'm seeing Bitcoin Cash everywhere. Please don't do that. Because, quite frankly, if you look at all the major cryptos, Bitcoin Cash lost around 50% last year. Why would anybody want to have money just sitting in Bitcoin Cash? Bitcoin Cash is not Bitcoin. But there are now platforms that you could facilitate trades with cryptocurrency. All we're really talking about is how to offset this loss in retirement income or shore up your retirement if Social Security truly becomes an issue, right? So we have life insurance, which is great as a death benefit but as the investment feature, I'm not I'm not sold. It has its purpose, but I'm not sold. And we have all these things. So we could trade in the US via interactive brokers or companies like that allow us to onboard and our citizens to onboard. And then you should look at Jamaica. You should look at, Jamaica has a micro cap, meaning they help raise money for very small companies. Very, very small companies. And that has tremendous growth because the more the risk, the higher the
that
return.
Is true.
Yeah.
That is so true. Okay, so now that we are on, we're here talking about investments. Now, we're going to get to the part where I'm going to invest, or how should I invest, because I need to worry about me, because it's looking like by that 2040 year, nothing going to be happening for me, and I plan to get a couple babies also before then.
Okay, then.
So, yeah. But there was a point in time that Social Security invested. Talk about the Beacon Heights project that they had going. Big and strong, was all over the place. So let's talk a bit about that, because they were thinking, I'm going to invest, in the long run, but then we are still hearing reports that we should, not hopefully, but there's a chance that by 2040, we should be depleted. So then,
so let me first say, okay. I've always struggled with, because there was a recent show by that I was watching, put out on the same topic. And the gentleman that spoke basically described Social Security as a purse of the government. And I fundamentally disagree with that approach. And I think that although the assets and contributions from Social Security, remember the purpose is to spur economic activity, but it was to spur economic activity on the consumption side of the GDP equation, not on the government spending side of the GDP equation.
Gotcha.
The spirit of the system needs to be relooked, right? So let's, for example, Beacon Heights. Beacon Heights is a real estate project. I don't have the numbers specifically for that project, but that same report suggests to me that right now we have about $1.6 billion in investments, cash and investments at Social Security. Kudos. Let's say 1.7. I think that was a number they were touting recently. Of that number, real estate projects account for 13.4% or $215 million. Right? That's a lot of friggin' money.
A lot of my money.
If you look at the Beacon Heights, and when I was flying in, I looked down, I count the houses. It's empty.
Tabooed talk.